Hadiza, we're done. I found new love. Leroy's words sliced through the gospel hymns of our 30th wedding anniversary like scissors through silk, right there in the heart of Zion Baptist Church in Harlem. My husband of 30 years stood tall in his jasmine suit, champagne flute raised like it was just another toast. Our sacred milestone was crumbling into scandal. The woman across the aisle, Tanisha, Lila's young teacher with her red dress glowing under the chandeliers, flashed me a knowing half smile. She knew this storm was brewing. Everyone's eyes locked on me, the quiet homemaker, waiting for the tears or the scream. I'll tell you everything. First, let me thank you for tuning into Auntie May's Tales. Please subscribe and drop in the comments where you're watching from. We might shout you out next time. Thank you for being part of our circle. Now, let me tell you everything. The organ's dying note faded, leaving that heavy hush in the church hall where the air still hummed with the ghost of gospel harmonies. Forks hovered midair over plates of cooling collards and cornbread, the sweet tea sweating rings onto the linens. I felt every eye like a pinprick on my skin, waiting for me to unravel right there at the head table. Leroy's champagne flute caught the chandelier light as he lowered it, his knuckles pale against the glass, breath sharp with that fizzy tang mixing into the faint cigar smoke clinging to his suit. His eyes skipped past me, landing on Tanisha across the aisle, her red dress a slash of color under the sconces, her napkin folded into precise triangles, fingers lingering on the edge like she was already packing away what was left of us. Why her? The thought gnawed, not a scream but a slow twist in my gut, like dough too stiff under my knuckles back home. I'd brought Tanisha into our lives myself, vouching for her job with Lila last fall, chatting easily about crayons and nap times while she tied my granddaughter's laces with those steady hands. Did she smile like that then too, half-cocked, knowing? Or was it new, practiced in some mirror after their late parent-teacher coffees? Leroy's laugh used to boom in those pickup moments, a beat too long on her shoulder, his hand brushing hers. I'd chalk it up to charm, the jazz man in him drawing folks in. But now it felt like threads pulling loose from a seam I'd mended 100 times. My chest squeezed, not rage yet, but that hollow ache of seeing your life rewoven without you. 30 years of dawn risings to grind beans for his thermos, slipping in notes, "Blow 'em away, baby," while my feet throbbed from scrubbing his stage shirts, grease and sweat baked into the collar. I'd perch on the bed's edge after, listening to his gig tales, nodding through the ache in my back from ironing or stirring pots till my arms hummed. The nights he ghosted till sunrise. The music calls, I'd whisper to the cold sheets, pulling up the quilt like armor. But that whisper inside never quieted. Is this it? The steady one, mopping spills before they set, turning scraps into Sunday dinners? The wife who kept the fridge stocked while he chased applause? Jamal's hand clamped mine under the table, his palm damp, grip like he was anchoring us both. "Mom!" he breathed, eyes pleading for a cue. Lila stacked sugar packets into a teetering pile, humming off-key, braids swinging. "Gamma Castle!" she beamed, sugar dust on her fingers. I mustered a smile for her, the kind that fools kids but not the mirror, starting in the eyes, fighting down to the mouth. If I broke now, her little world cracked too. But God, the whirlwind inside. How do you swallow a lifetime in one gulp, right here amid the punch bowls and paper lanterns? Murmurs crept in, ripples from Aunt Clara's corner, her bangles a soft jangle as she leaned close. "Hadiza, girl, you gon' sit there?" Low, urgent, like stoop talks back in the day. Cousin Ray grunted beside her, mustache twitching. Pastor Ellis paused with the deacons, Bible armpit tucked, brow knit in that "let's pray it out" furrow. They saw me as the rock, the Easterham glazer, the birthday card stitcher with felt and glue. Waiting for the floodgates, I guess. The sob, the scene, the Monday salon fodder. But I held, fingers slid along my water glass, thumb tracing the slick condensation, cool against the flush creeping up my neck. Breaking. Like those daytime dramas, hollering till hoarse, or folding small, letting them glimpse the patches I'd prayer sealed. No, ma'am. I'd been the fixer too long, spills blotted before stains, leftovers spun into miracles. This mess, just another one. Breathe through it, Hadiza. One breath. Leroy cleared his throat, a rasp cutting the quiet. Hadiza, softer, probing like forgotten anniversary waters, eyes flicking to Jamal then back. Later. Private. Pleading like 005's hasty takeout. Sorry, but this wasn't wilted roses. This was Tanisha, her smile edging wider, like privy to a punchline I'd missed. What lies had he spun? Kitchen nag, bill botherer, or blank slate till upgrade? I rose slowly, chair scrape echoing sharply on hardwood. Leroy, voice him steady, you laid it out, bold as brass. Gasps whispered, magnolia soft. Fingers found Mama's pearl necklace, cool stones against my throat, her storm shield. Click of the clasp, faint but done. Stepped close, close enough for his stubble shadow, the jaw I'd shaved mornings endlessly. He hitched as I looped it over his neck, the chain settling heavily. Anniversary gift, I murmured, front row volume. Clasp it alone later, it'll clear the fog. His fingers grazed mine, warm, old habit, and for a blink, the boy from City Hall rain flickered, Coltrane humming in showers, gone quickly, confusion clouding. Rage, beg, nah. I pecked his cheek, sealed the envelope dry, and turned. Jamal's stare begged signals. Lila clapped. Daddy sparkles! Real laugh escaped me, deep bubbling. Kids see glitter, not glass. Kinda sugar. Room breathed, Clinks resuming hesitantly. Sat, skirt smoothed, mind leaping. That clasp, not just pearls. Hidden USB papers, proof to rumble whispers into a roar. Outside later, sun low on brownstones, I'd dial Ethel. But now, raised my water glass, silent toast to the woman I was and the one clawing free. What next? Sisters, that's the match striking flint. The drive to Ethel's felt like floating through fog, Harlem's streetlights smearing past the window in blurry halos, the kind that make you wonder if you're still in the same city or just circling back on yourself. My hands gripped the wheel too tightly, knuckles aching like they'd held onto that necklace clasp too long, and every red light dragged out the replay in my head. Leroy's voice cracking on new love, Tanisha's napkin folds sharpening like accusations. But I didn't cry, not then. Instead, the radio hummed low, some old Aretha crooning about chains, and I let it wash over me, wondering if this was the chain snapping or just another link bending under the weight I'd carried too long. Ethel's door swung open before I knocked, her porch light spilling warm yellow onto the stoop, cutting the night like a lantern in a blackout. Come on in, sugar, she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled of lavender soap and the faint starch from her deaconess robe. No questions, just that solid hold, like she knew the shape of grief before it had words. Her place was a sanctuary, bookshelves crammed with dog-eared Zora Neale Hurston and Maya Angelou. A quilt she'd pieced herself draped over the couch, patches of lives stitched into something whole. I sank into it, the fabric soft against my back, and finally let out the breath I'd been holding since the hall. You want tea? Ginger, like always? Ethel busied herself in the kitchen, clinking mugs with that rhythmic calm she had, the one that made you believe storms passed if you just sat through them. I nodded, staring at my hands, calloused palms from years of kneading dough, fingers pricked from needles in the quiet hours. Ethel, I started, voice rough as unsanded wood. It's not just the words, it's the build-up. 6 months back, I started noticing things. Little nothings that piled up like laundry I couldn't sort. She slid the mug across the coffee table, steam curling up in lazy spirals, and settled beside me, her knee bumping mine in that sisterly nudge. Start from the beginning, Hadiza. The good Lord gave us memories for a reason, to untangle 'em. So I did, words tumbling out slow at first, then faster, like water breaching a dam. It began that crisp October afternoon, Lila's first day with Tanisha at the community center. I dropped her off early, waving from the car as the little one skipped inside, her backpack swinging wildly. Tanisha met me at the door, all bright energy, ponytail bouncing. Mrs. Johnson, Lila's a joy, already bossing the block building. We'd laughed, easy over coffee from the thermos I'd brought, talking lesson plans while she doodled on a notepad, her pen scratching quick loops, left-handed, ink smudging her pinky like a secret mark. But Leroy, he'd shown up to surprise us for pickup, his trumpet case slung over one shoulder, grin wide as the Hudson. Thought I'd walk my girls home, he'd said, kissing my cheek quick, then turning to Tanisha with that jazzman spark, eyes locking a beat too long, his hand clapping her shoulder like old pals. She'd flushed, tucking a stray hair, and laughed at his quip about Lila's rhythm section in class. I chalked it up to his charm, the way he lit up rooms, but walking home, his arm loose around my waist, felt off, distracted, like he was already halfway out the door in his mind. From there, the threads unraveled one by one. The late nights at the club, coming home with shirt collars askew, not from sweat, but something softer. Perfume that wasn't my rose water, faint and floral, clinging like dew. I'd sniff it discreetly while hanging his jacket, telling myself it was stage smoke, groupies' hugs, then the phone, buzzing face down on the counter during dinner, screen lighting up with texts he swiped away too fast. Just the band, baby. Set list changes. His thumb would hover, though, a split-second pause like weighing words he couldn't say aloud. And the money? God, the money. I'd always handled the books, balancing his gig checks against the rent on Lennox, slipping extras into Lila's college fund. But those withdrawals started small. 50 here for gas, 100 there for club dues, then balloon, 200 gone in a blink for unexpected expenses. I'd stare at the bank app in the dim kitchen light after everyone slept, the glow casting shadows on the fridge magnets, family pics from vacations we'd scraped for, Jamal's diploma taped crooked. Why didn't I call him on it? The question looped in my head like a scratched record, guilt twisting with the hurt. Because confronting meant admitting the fairy tale had frayed. And what then? A fight in front of the kids shattering their bubble? Jamal grinding through engineering exams needed peace to focus. Lila with her gap-toothed grins deserved mornings without tension. So I swallowed it, turned the sting into stitches. That's when the garage became my hideout. Door cracked just enough for air, the old Singer machine whirring softly under the bare bulb. I'd pull out Mama's inheritance quilt, the one with African prints she'd smuggled from Ghana, and sketch on scrap paper. Flowing dresses with high necks for grace, wide skirts that hugged curves without pinching, patterns echoing civil rights marches, bold lines, unapologetic colors. Harlem Grace, I whispered to the space, needle-piercing fabric like punctuation. It wasn't escape, it was armor. $50 from the fund bought thread from the market on 125th, and by December I'd sewn 3 samples, draping them on the dress form I'd rigged from a broomstick and wire hangers. Ethel sipped her tea, eyes steady on mine. And the agreement, that paper from '93. Her voice pulled me back, gentle but probing, like drawing out a splinter. I nodded, setting my mug down, the ceramic warm under my palms. Leroy pushed for it after his first big gig flopped, said it protected his assets, the trumpet and tips. I signed without a fuss, thinking it was just lawyer talk. But you checked it last month, Ethel. That fidelity clause? If he strays, he forfeits most of the joint stuff, the house, the savings. All that protection boomerangs right back. She hummed low, approving, her fingers drumming the mug rim in that rhythmic way like a quiet drum solo. Smart man, foolish play. But Hadiza, why wait till now? Why not blow it open sooner? I leaned back, the quilt scratching softly against my shoulders, and let the truth bubble up. The raw part I'd buried under busyness. Fear, I guess. Fear of being the fool left holding empty pockets, or worse, the angry one chasing him down. And love? That stubborn kind that whispers, maybe it's a phase. But tonight, seeing her smile like that, knowing, it snapped something, not me, him. The words hung, heavy as unshed rain, and for the first time a flicker of fire warmed the ache. What if this wasn't ending, but beginning? What if those sketches in the garage weren't just busy work, but blueprints? Ethel's hand covered mine, callus to callus. The Lord's got a plan in the unraveling, sister. Rest here tonight. Tomorrow we lace up those boots. I nodded, exhaustion pulling at my eyelids, but sleep wouldn't come easily. As she shuffled off to the guest room linens, I slipped my phone out, thumbing through the bank app one more time. Another withdrawal. Yesterday, 200 for dinner out. Dinner with whom? The question lodged like a bone in my throat, but instead of choking, I let it fuel the quiet resolve building inside. Tomorrow I'd dig deeper. For Jamal, for Lila, for the woman in the mirror who'd sewn her own cape all along the guest room at Ethel's, smelled of fresh linen and that faint mothball whiff from the cedar chest, the bed sagging soft under me like an old friend's shoulder. Sleep came in fits and snatches of gospel refrains, twisting into Leroy's voice, echoing new love until dawn crept pink through the lace curtains. By 7, I was up, splashing cold water on my face in her tiny bathroom, the mirror fogging quickly from the steam, blurring my reflection just enough to pretend it was someone else's hurt staring back. Ethel was already in the kitchen, bacon sizzling in the pan, grease popping like distant fireworks. "Coffee's on," she said without turning. her spatula scraping rhythmically against the iron skillet. I poured a mug, black and scalding, letting it burn my tongue on the first sip. Punishment or penance, who knew? He'll call soon, she added, plating eggs with that matter-of-fact tone like reading tomorrow's weather. When he does, are you ready? I nodded, sinking into the chair by the window, the wood creaking under me. Ready. The word tasted bitter as overbrewed grounds. What did ready even mean when your vows hung by a thread, frayed by hands you trusted? My fingers absently traced the empty spot at my throat. No necklace now, just bearskin prickling in the morning chill. I tucked the USB duplicate in my purse before leaving the hall last night, a slim drive wrapped in tissue, its weight no heavier than a thimble but loaded like a 38. Papers inside, the divorce filing stamped that morning, bank statements circled in red pen, screenshots of his texts pulled from a shared cloud folder he'd forgotten to lock. And the sketches, those Harlem Grace pages, pencil lines blooming into dresses that hugged without squeezing. Fabrics I'd sourced from the market bins on 125th, dreaming of women like me, full-figured and unbowed. The phone buzzed on the table, Jamal's name lighting the screen, my heart lurching like a skipped beat. Mom! His voice cracked on the edge of panic when I picked up, the background hum of morning traffic on Lennox filtering through. What the hell was that last night, Dad's? He's at the house pacing like a caged lion, said something about a gift, a necklace. Lila's asking why you didn't come home. I could picture him. Tall frame hunched over the kitchen counter, free hand raking through his close-cropped hair, the way he did during finals week. I'm okay, baby, I said, keeping it light like soothing a scraped knee. Tell your daddy to open it alone and hug Lila for me. Tell her Gamma's got a surprise story for bedtime. He pressed, voice dropping low. Mom, people are talking. Aunt Clara called already, saying Dad's spinning it like you're the one who snapped. The words stung, hot as bacon grease, but I breathed through it. Let him talk. Truth cuts cleaner than rumors. We'll sort this soon. Hanging up, I stared at the mug's steam, wondering if Jamal saw the cracks I'd hidden so well, the late-night doubts, the quiet tallies of his absences. Ethel slid a plate my way, eggs over easy, yolks runny like unshed tears. Eat. Can't fight on empty. We chewed in companionable quiet, forks scraping china, the sizzle fading to ticks from the wall clock. But my mind wandered back, unbidden, to the first real snag, 3 months after Tanisha's hire. It was a Thursday, rain sheeting the windows like God's own curtain call, and Leroy had come home soaked, jacket dripping on the hall rug. Gig ran long, traffic's a beast, he'd mumbled, pecking my cheek before heading straight for the shower. I hung the coat, routine as breathing, but my fingers brushed something stiff in the pocket. A receipt crumpled, ink blurred but legible. Queen's Inn, 2 nights, $280. No club address, no band stamp. And the date? Overlapping his solo retreat weekend, when he'd called once, voice echoing off tile like he was in a bathroom stall. Miss you, baby. Just clearing my head. I'd folded it away then, tucked in my sewing kit under spools of thread, telling myself it was nothing. A comped stay from a promoter, maybe, but the floral scent lingered on the collar, cloying as cheap hotel soap, not the smoky velvet of Blue Note lounges. Why bury it? The question looped, a stubborn stitch refusing to catch. Pride, mostly. Pride in the home I'd stitched together. Thread by careful thread, from hand-me-down linens to the quilt on our bed, pieced from Mama's old dresses. Admitting the rot meant unpicking the whole thing, risking Jamal's hard-won calm or Lila's fairy tale world. So I channeled it into the garage, that dim corner with its concrete floor etched in oil stains from Leroy's trumpet polish. Nights when the house slept, I'd flip on the bulb, its buzz a lonely companion, and spread patterns on the workbench. Curves echoing the sway of hips in church aisles, necklines framing collarbones like spotlights on a quiet strength. For us, I'd murmur to the fabric, scissors snicking clean lines, each cut a small rebellion. By January, I'd sewn a prototype, a wrap dress in Kente print flowing without fuss, and slipped it on in the mirror, the fit hugging my middle like a hug, not a harness. Felt good. Felt like me, not just the wife. Ethel cleared plates, her hip bumping the sink in that familiar sway. You filed it this morning, right? Before the service? I nodded, the notary's stamp still fresh in my mind, the clerk's raised eyebrow as she notarized the divorce petition. her pen scratching deliberately on the line for irreconcilable differences. Yeah, and the claws. God, Ethel. He pushed that paper like it was his lifeline back in '93 after his folks' farm went under. Protects what I've built, he said. Signed it blind, but you dug it up. Fidelity breach means he walks with scraps. She hummed, drying her hands on a dish towel printed with Psalms verses. Irony tastes sweet, don't it? But Hadiza, when he opens that drive, it'll hit like a downbeat drop. My phone lit again. Not Jamal, but a text from Leroy. Home now. What the hell is this? Call me. Heart thudding steady, I typed back. Open it all, then we talk. Sent. The wait stretched, seconds ticking like a metronome, until the buzz came, a voice note. His breath ragged, words tumbling furious. Papers, bank crap! Those drawings, what, you think this erases us? 30 years, Hadiza. I hit play, volume low, his rasp filling the kitchen like smoke. Ethel paused, listening, her eyes sharpening. Then my reply, calm as pond water. Doesn't erase, redefines, you chose, Leroy. Now live it. Clicked off, pocketed the phone, the weight settling like a final seam sealed. Ethel's hand on my shoulder was firm. He'll come storming. You holding? I met her gaze, the fire from last night flickering brighter now, not wild but contained like embers banked for morning. Yeah, but what if this breaks more than us? What about the kids seeing their dad like this? A man unraveling his own tune? The question hung, unanswered, as tires crunched gravel outside. His car pulling up too fast. A door slammed, footsteps heavy on the porch. Showtime. The front door rattled like thunder trapped in a tin can. Leroy's fist pounding hard enough to shake the frame, his voice muffled but sharp through the wood. Ethel, open up. Hadiza's in there. I know it. My pulse jumped, hot and quick under my skin, but I stayed put in the armchair, legs crossed at the ankles, the dish towel I'd grabbed for show twisted tight in my lap. Ethel moved slowly, deliberately, wiping her hands on her apron before unlocking the chain with a metallic snick that cut the air. Leroy Johnson, you holler like that again, and you'll wake the whole block, she said, voice low and steady as a deacon's prayer, cracking the door just wide enough for his shadow to spill in. He pushed through anyway, suit rumpled now, tie yanked loose like a noose half slipped, eyes wild scanning the room till they locked on me. You, he breathed, stepping heavy on the rug, the floorboards groaning under his boots. Papers clutched in his fist, my papers, the ones from the drive, edges curled like they'd been balled up and smoothed a dozen times. His face was a map of cracks, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitch, forehead slick with sweat that caught the kitchen light in oily beads. What the hell is this, divorce? Bank statements with circles like I'm some crook? And these drawings? You think this fixes anything? I unfolded slowly from the chair, the fabric whispering against my legs, and met his gaze head on, that old jazz fire in his eyes flickering now dimmer, like a bulb on its last watt. The air between us hung thick, laced with the ginger steam still rising from our mugs, sweet spicy cutting through the faint mildew whiff from his damp collar, rain from the drive over, or maybe tears he wouldn't own. Doesn't fix, Leroy, I said, voice even, like laying out quilt blocks one by one. Reveals. You laid your cards last night. I'm just showing mine. He thrust the wad forward, pages rustling like dry leaves, his hand trembling just enough to make the stack fan out. Red ink transfers glaring up. $200 here for dinner. $500 there for gifts. Dates lining up neat with his late nights. Ethel hovered in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, a silent wall. But I waved her off gently, no need for backup yet. This was between us, the raw thread of it. Sit, I said, nodding to the couch, the one with the quilt she'd sewn from scraps of old choir robes, patches of purple and gold faded soft. He hesitated, chest heaving like after long set, then dropped onto it, the spring sighing under his weight. I perched on the coffee table edge, close but not touching, knees inches from his, the heat off him like a radiator gone faulty. That money? It was for Lila's books, Jamal's tools, not whatever this is. My finger tapped the top sheet. Light, like testing water temperature before a bath. He rubbed his face, palms rasping over stubble, eyes squeezing shut for a beat. It's not what you think. Tanisha. She gets me, Hadiza. The music, the nights that don't end at dawn. You. You're always in the kitchen or folding like life's just chores. The words landed softly but sliced deep, a dull ache blooming in my chest, spreading warm and sick like spilled gravy on a white shirt. Chores? 30 years boiled down to aprons and suds? I leaned in, breath steady, watching his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed. And you get her how? Those texts I pulled, can't wait for our spot, no strings? Or the Queen's receipts, 2 beds but 1 checkout time? His eyes snapped open, pupils shrinking to pinpricks, hand crumpling the papers tighter. You spied? Went through my phone. Not spied, I said, pulling my own copy from the purse at my feet, unfolding it slowly, the paper crinkling crisp. Shared account, remember, like the one you swore protected us. I slid it across, the fidelity clause highlighted yellow. Words stark. Breach means forfeiture. House, savings, all but his trumpet and clothes. His fingers snatched it, scanning fast, color draining from his cheeks like milk curdling. This old thing, from 93, it's dust Hadiza. The lawyer said it expired years back. But his voice wobbled, that telltale jazz man's improv faltering, eyes darting to the fine print like he'd skimmed it once and filed it away. I let the quiet stretch, the clock ticking steadily on the mantel, each second piling on like unsorted laundry. Why fight the lie now? Because lies had weight, heavy as wet hems dragging in mud, and I'd carried enough for both of us. Didn't expire, Leroy. Ethel checked. Section 12, clear as Sunday print. Holds till death do us part or court says otherwise. You pushed it after your folks lost the farm, remember? Gotta shield what I build. Funny how shields turn to swords. He deflated, shoulders slumping, paper slipping to his lap like defeated cards. We built this together. Jamal, Lila, they need us whole. The plea tugged, old habit kicking in. That fixer urge, wanting to mend the tear before it spread. But then I pictured Lila's sugar castle toppling last night, her confusion if Daddy vanished for good, Jamal's late-night study grind cracking under family fallout. Whole, I echoed, voice soft but edged, like velvet over steel. You chipped that when you started those retreats. Thought I wouldn't notice the perfume switch. Floral, not my rose, or the way your shirt smelled of motel bleach, not club haze. His head jerked up, mouth opening then closing, fish-like in the low light. Gotcha. The small victory warmed, not triumphant, but clarifying, like sunlight hitting a dust mote and making it dance. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice dropping to that husky post-set timbre. It was a mistake. Heat of the moment, the music pulling me places. We can fix this. For the kids. Kids. The word hung. A lifeline or a chain. I thought of Jamal's call this morning, his voice fraying at the edges, and Lila's innocent sparkle question. But fixing, like patching a quilt with rotten thread, it'd hold till the next storm, then shred. Mistakes don't empty accounts, Leroy, or plan exits on anniversaries. I tapped the email printout next, his words to her glaring. After the toast, I'll say it, clean break, no scene. His face crumpled, hand-raking hair, the defeated slump I'd seen after bad gigs, but this time, no encore. Ethel cleared her throat from the kitchen, a subtle chime, and I glanced her way, her nod faint, approving. Time to seal it. You got 48 hours, pack what's yours. House stays mine, per the paper. And the money court'll sort. He rose slowly, papers clutched like a shield, eyes pleading one last flicker. Hadiza, 30 years, doesn't that count? Count? Oh, it counted. Every stitch, every dawn, every quiet yes, when no screamed louder. But counting meant reckoning, and his tally was short. Counts for everything, I said, standing to match him, the air between us humming tense as a plucked string. That's why it hurts like fire, but fire clears brush for new growth. He turned for the door, shoulders bowed, the knob turning with a click that echoed too final. As it shut, the house sighed back to quiet ginger scent fading to cool air. Ethel stepped close, arm around my waist. You held, sister, like a boss solo. I leaned into her, the ache easing to dull throb, but questions swirled. What now, with the thread cut? Would Jamal forgive the silence I'd kept? The door's echo lingered, a question mark in the hush, pulling me toward whatever riff came next. The door's click still echoed in my ears when my phone lit up again, screen glowing soft in the dim living room, Jamal's name flashing like a beacon through fog. I snatched it quick, thumb smudging the glass, heart tripping over itself. Had he heard the slam from blocks away? Mom. His voice spilled out low and jagged, like gravel under tires on Lenox after rain. Dad just left here, stormed in, yelling about some necklace and papers. What did you give him? He's pacing the kitchen, crumpling stuff like it's trash. I could hear it in the background. His boots thudding unevenly on the linoleum, a cabinet banging shut too hard, the fridge humming louder in the sudden quiet. Jamal's breath hitched, waiting, and I pictured him leaning against the counter, knuckles white on the phone, that engineer's precision cracking under the weight of daddy drama. Baby, I said, sinking back into Ethel's armchair, the cushions molding to me like an old habit. It's just clarity. Things he's needed to see for a while. The words felt thin, stretched like worn elastic, but I pushed on, voice steady as stirring gravy on low heat. Tell him to breathe, and you. Hug Lila tight tonight. Gamma's got stories for her tomorrow. He pressed, tone sharpening. Mom, Aunt Clara's blowing up my phone. Says Dad's telling everyone you lost it. Planned this whole thing to blindside him. Like you're the villain. Villain? The label stuck like burrs on wool, pricking deep. Me, the one who'd ironed his shirts crisp for gigs, who'd packed his trumpet case with polish and picks. I closed my eyes, thumb tracing the armrest's frayed seam, the rough threads grounding me. Let Clara talk. Folks love a good plot twist, but Jamal, this ain't no script. It's us figuring out what's real. He went quiet, the line crackling faint with his sigh. Then, I should have seen it coming. Dad's been distant, snapping at little things, like when I asked about that weekend retreat last month. Said it was band stuff, but his phone buzzed nonstop, face lighting up like Christmas. Distant, the word landed soft but heavy, stirring the pot of doubts I'd simmered low for months. I'd caught those lights too, screen glow under the dinner table, his thumb swiping quick, a smirk tugging his lip like a secret melody. Boy, I murmured, you couldn't have known I didn't want you to. You got deadlines, promotions hanging. Last thing you need is me dumping grown folk mess on your plate. Silence stretched, thick as molasses, then his voice softened. Mom, you're not a mess, you're you, the one who taught me to fix engines with bobby pins. If Dad's spinning tales, I'll set him straight. Pride swelled, warm in my chest, chasing the chill, my boy stepping up without me asking, his loyalty a stitch holding the tear. Ethel patted in from the kitchen, 2 fresh mugs steaming, her slippers whispering on the rug. She handed me one chamomile this time, herbal calm cutting the ginger's edge, and settled across, eyes sharp but kind, like she was reading the fine print on my soul. Jamal holding? She asked, low enough not to intrude. I nodded, covering the mic. Thinks I should spill more. She hummed, sipping slowly, the steam veiling her face for beat. Kids got a right to the rhythm, Hadiza, but you set the tempo. I uncovered, wrapping up with Jamal. We'll talk soon, face to face. Love you, son, fierce as ever. Clicked off, the quiet rushing back, broken only by the distant wail of a siren down the block. Harlem's night pulse steady as ever. The phone didn't stay dark long, vibrations piling up like unopened mail. First, Cousin Ray. Girl, what in the world? Leroy's at the diner, nursing a coffee and muttering about betrayal. You okay? Betrayal. The irony twisted, bitter as burnt toast. Him who'd slipped out for solos, leaving me with cold sheets and kid fivers. I thumbed back quick. Okay as pie. Pray for us. Then Sister Grace from choir. Heard the buzz? Church lines lit up. Hadiza, honey, you need a ride home? Or a ear? Her words warmed, but the pity laced in stung, sharp as a dropped needle. They saw me as the broken piece, the homemaker sidelined, apron strings cut loose. But what if I wasn't breaking? What if this was the seam splitting to let light through? I scrolled deeper, texts from the prayer circle popping like fireflies. Standing with you, sis. Lord got this. But one from Pastor Ellis gave pause, formal, type neatly at, call if you need counsel. Family first, always. Family. The word looped, tugging at threads I'd frayed myself these past months, choosing silence to shield Jamal's focus, Lila's giggles. Was that mercy or madness? Ethel caught my frown, leaning in. The choir sisters. They're circling wagons. I nodded, but doubt gnawed. Wagons for what? A siege or a parade? They mean well, I said, but it's like they're scripting my cry already. Poor Hadiza, caught flat-footed. She chuckled low, warm as cornbread fresh from the oven. Let 'em script. You direct the show. The next buzz wasn't text. A call, unknown number, but the area code screamed Queens. Heart skipping, I let it ring twice, thumb hovering, then answered. Hello. Static crackled, then a hesitant breath. Mrs. Johnson, it's Tanisha. Her voice, usually bright as a kid's crayon, came muffled, like talking through a dish towel. I know this is crazy, but can we talk? Not here, somewhere neutral. Coffee shop on 125th? Neutral. The word hung ironic. Her end of the line rustling. Papers, a door creak. I glanced at Ethel, her eyebrow arching a silent question, and the pull tugged hard. Curiosity or trap? Why? I asked, voice cool as window glass in winter. Pause then. Leroy. He showed me the papers. The money I didn't know. Didn't know or didn't care. The line hummed, waiting, and in that space memories flickered. Her laughing at my joke about Lila's art projects. Her hand steady braiding my granddaughter's hair. Allie, or accomplice. Ethel mouthed, speaker? But I shook no, the choice mine. Tomorrow, 10 sharp, the spot by the market. Clicked off, the quiet was thicker now, laced with what-ifs. What game was this? Guilt or getaway? And deeper, what part of me wanted answers and what part just wanted to walk away whole? The mug cooled in my hands, chamomile forgotten as the siren wailed closer, a question mark curving through the night. Tomorrow's brew would tell. The coffee shop on 125th buzzed with mid-morning rhythm, espresso machines hissing like impatient kettles, the grind of beans sharp under the chatter of suits grabbing to-go cups, steam fogging the pastry case where pecan rolls gleamed sticky and gold. I claimed the corner booth by the window, vinyl seats cracking soft under me, the fake leather cool against my thighs through my slacks. Tanisha slid in opposite, a tick after 10, her red dress from last night swapped for jeans and a blouse, but that same floral scent trailed her, faint now, like wilted petals in a vase too long on the sill. She clutched a paper cup, lid popped, steam curling up to pink her cheeks, fingers drumming the rim in quick, nervous taps. Left-handed, same as always, smudging the wax like yesterday's ink. Black, 2 sugars, she said to the hovering barista, voice pitched low, then turned to me, eyes darting to the door like checking for tails. Thanks for coming. I didn't sleep. Neither had I, but I kept that tucked, stirring my own mug slow, the spoon clinking deliberate against ceramic, watching the dark swirl lighten to tan. What was her angle? Apology tour or damage control? Her knee bounced under the table, a faint jiggle rippling the wood, and I caught the glint of a cheap ring on her thumb, twisting it like a worry stone. Start talking, I said, voice even as folding fitted sheets, before the line out there gets wind of this. She leaned in, elbows planting firm, cup forgotten as her words spilled fast, tripping over each other like kids racing recess. It wasn't supposed to go down like that. At the church, I mean, he said privately after the toasts. A clean handoff, no fuss. Handoff. The word soured my coffee, bitter on my tongue. Me passed like a baton in his solo run. Her eyes flicked to my hands, then away, lashes batting quickly. I never meant to. You know, with Lila's grandma right there. Grandma. The tag softened her edge, a nod to those afternoons I'd lingered in her classroom, swapping recipes for Play-Doh art, while she braided Lila's hair with patient twists, her fingers deft and sure. Had those been real? Or just camouflage for stolen glances with Leroy in the hall? Why tell me now? I asked, setting the spoon down with a soft clink, the sound cutting the hum of the blender whirring behind the counter. She shifted, vinyl squeaking, her foot tapping mine accidental under the table, pulling back quick like scorched. The papers! He showed up at my place last night, waving them like flags, divorce stamp fresh, those bank pulls with dates matching our weekends, Queens Inn, the beach trip he called solo inspiration. 200 for that necklace I mentioned? For me. Her voice cracked on the last, and flying to her throat, bare now, no chain glinting. The image flashed, Leroy in some dim jewelry shop, haggling over sparkle for her neck while my savings drained for Lila's braces. Heat rose in my chest, not boil, but simmer, steady as a pot on low. She rummaged her bag, pulling a crumpled envelope, sliding it across, receipts hers for dinners and gas, totals adding neat to his expenses. I didn't know it was your money, he said. Independent gigs, side hustle from the club, said you handled house stuff, but the big picture was his. House stuff, The dismissal landed like a slap with a feather, light but stinging where it counted. I unfolded one, paper whispering dry, dates glaring up. February 14th, Valentine's escape, $450. While I'd set his place at the table with candles flickering low, a single rose from the corner bodega, wilting in a bud vase. And you believed him? My tone stayed flat, but inside the churn built. What fool trusts a married man's math? Her shoulders slumped, cup tipping slight, a drip beating on the rim. Wanted to. Single mom, scraping for rent. He painted this picture of freedom, no strings but his trumpet case. Jamal's face flickered in my mind then. His call last night, voice fraying as he described Leroy's rage, crumpling pages like yesterday's news. Did he tell you about the kids? How does this land on them? She winced, thumb twisting that ring harder, the metal band catching light in a dull spin. Yeah, after, said Jamal was grown, handling it. And Lila. She'd adjust. But seeing her in class, all braids and crayons. Oh! Her voice trailed, eyes misting, and for a beat the hardness cracked. Real regret or good acting? I leaned back, booth creaking, the window cool at my shoulder, watching a vendor hawk scarves across the street, fabrics fluttering bold in the breeze. What did she see in the mirror? Thief or just another woman chasing steady? The barista swung by, refills steaming, breaking the spell, and she straightened, wiping her eye quick with a napkin shred. That's why I called. To say, I'm out. No more. Out. Simple as flipping a light switch, but the fallout. Light stayed on in the dark corners. Just like that? I pressed, spoon stirring absent, the clink rhythmic as a heartbeat. She nodded fiercely, cup grip two-handed now, knuckles paling. Just like, but Hadiza, your sketches. He showed those too. The dresses, Harlem Grace, they're beautiful, like you saw us. The curves, the stories in the seams. Beautiful. The word hung unexpected, warming the chill, like sunlight on chilled hands. I'd shared those pages last night in the heat, a flash of defiance, but hearing it from her, a thread pulling taut, not snapping. We sat then, quiet stretching as the shop thinned. Last stragglers grabbing lids, doorbells jingling farewell. Her foot stilled, napkin folds loosening in her lap. What now? For you? The question turned it back, her eyes searching mine, vulnerable now, stripped of the half-smile. What now? The whirl inside. Pack the garage full, stitch the hurt into something wearable, or let it hang, raw edge out? Now, I said, rising slow, purse strap settling heavy on my shoulder. I sew what fits. You figure your measure. She nodded, standing too, the booth sighing empty behind us. Outside, the scarves snapped in wind, colors vivid against gray sky, a hint, maybe, of patterns waiting to emerge. But as we parted on the sidewalk, her wave tentative over her shoulder, one snag lingered. Was this bridge mending, or just another loose thread begging a tug? Rain sheeted the courthouse steps like a veil nobody asked for, turning the granite slick under my flats, each step up echoing wet slaps that matched the thud in my chest. Ethel gripped my elbow steadily, her umbrella snapping shut at the door, with a crack like a judge's gavel preview, water beating off her coat in dark rivulets. Breathe, Hadiza. It's just words on paper now, she murmured, her voice a low anchor amid the lobby hum, heels clicking on marble, muffled coughs from the security line, the faint tang of wet wool and stale coffee from the vending machine. I nodded, but inside the churn built slowly. What if words weren't enough? What if 30 years dissolved in legalese, leaving me with echoes instead of walls? The courtroom smelled of polished oak and old ink, benches worn smooth from too many regrets, the air thick enough to chew. I slid into the plaintiff's row, wood cool against my palms, Ethel beside me, flipping her briefcase latch with a soft click, papers rustling like dry leaves in a draft. Across the aisle, Leroy hunched next to his lawyer, a slick-haired kid from downtown, tied too tight around his neck, thumbing his phone with quick swipes that screamed rookie nerves. Leroy caught my eye then, his gaze holding a beat too long, pleading, accusing. The lines around his mouth deepened, shadows under his eyes like bruises from a bad night's sleep, and for a flicker, I saw the man who'd hummed off-key in the shower, not the one who'd traded vows for weekends away. Judge Rivera swept in, robes swirling like storm clouds, her glasses perched low on her nose as she settled behind the bench, gavel tapping light but final. Johnson versus Johnson, she intoned, voice crisp as starched collars, shuffling the file with efficient flicks. Ethel rose smoothly, her heels firm on the floorboards. Your Honor, the marriage agreement from 1993 stands. Section 12 confirms no expiration. Fidelity clause intact. The kid across jumped up, voice pitching high. Objection! It's outdated, Your Honor. Precedent says time voids these relics. Rivera peered over her rims, eyebrow arching like a question mark. Counselor, precedent also honors plain language? Sit. He dropped quickly, papers whispering defeat, and Leroy's knee bounced faintly under the bar, tap tap, like a snare drum offbeat. My turn came slow, the room narrowing to the witness stand's hard seat, wood digging into my thighs as I raised my right hand, oath tumbling out wrote. Truth, whole truth. Ethel slid the folder over, her nod a quiet pulse. State your grounds, Mrs. Johnson. I cleared my throat, the mic humming softly, and let it flow, steady, like reciting a recipe to a skittish cook. Irreconcilable differences, Your Honor? Extramarital affair, financial misappropriation, transfers totaling over $20,000 from joint accounts documented here. I tapped the stack, dates glaring up like accusations in bold type, the paper crinkling under my finger. Rivera's pen scratched notes, deliberate strokes, her gaze steady on mine. Not pity, but appraisal, like sizing fabric for fit. Leroy's lawyer leaped again, voice scrambling. Your Honor, the agreement's moot. Mutual consent ended it years ago. Ethel countered smoothly. Exhibit B, emails time-stamped. Plans for post-anniversary exit. Public declaration. Breach clear. The kid sputtered, flipping pages frantically, his pen cap clicking like a nervous tick. Rivera leaned forward, glasses glinting under fluorescence. Mr. Johnson, your response. Leroy rose slowly, hands flat on the rail, knuckles paling. It got out of hand. But 30 years, she's twisting it. Twisting. The word coiled hot in my gut like thread kinking mid-stitch. What was twisted? The nights I'd waited up or the lies he'd spun to cover them. His eyes met mine again, raw now, the plea cracking through. Hadiza, we can work. Order, Rivera cut, gavel rapping sharp, wood on wood echoing like a snapped seam. She scanned the agreement closely, murmuring clauses under her breath, then looked up, voice brooking no riff. The document holds. Fidelity violation forfeits joint assets. Residence to the petitioner, accounts frozen pending full disclosure. Respondent retains personal effects, ordered to reimburse $15,000 for child-related expenses. The words landed flat, no fanfare, but they rippled. Leroy sagging like air let from a tire, his lawyer's pen frozen mid-scribble, ink beading uncapped on the pad. $15,000 for braces, books, the little buffers I'd scraped to build. Fair, or just the hem of justice, frayed but holding. Adjournment called. The room exhaling in shuffles and whispers, benches creaking as folks rose like a congregation post-sermon. I stood slowly, legs numb from the seat, Ethel's hand light on my back. Clean cut, she whispered, gathering files with efficient snaps. But Leroy pushed through the rail, his lawyer trailing haplessly, closing the gap in 3 long strides. Hadiza, wait. His voice rough, hand reaching but stopping short, fingers curling empty air. Up close, the stubble shadowed deeper, his cologne faint under sweat. Same bottle I'd bought last Christmas, now mocking. It's not right. The house? Our memories there. Jamal's first steps. Lila's finger paints on the fridge. Memories. The plea tugged, sharp as a loose pin, pricking the scar tissue I'd sewn over hurts. But whose memories? The ones where I'd scrubbed crayon off walls alone, or the nights he'd come home late, breath boozy, collapsing without a word. Before I could answer, a bailiff approached, envelope in hand, cream stock, sealed with wax, Leroy's family crest faintly embossed. For the petitioner, he said, handing it over neutrally, then retreating. I broke the seal slowly, paper whispering against my thumb, pulling the single sheet. Handwriting sloped elegantly, his mother's script. Dearest Hadiza, it began, dated last spring before her quiet passing. If you're reading this, Leroy's wandered again. He did once before, you know, after the war, chasing notes instead of home, but you pulled him back with hands that mend more than cloth. The agreement, I slipped in the legacy clause, for you, not him. You're the thread holding our line. Forgive if you can, but never forget your worth. The ink blurred, not from rain but salt on my lashes, her words a twist I hadn't sewn. Not just paper armor, but a mother's quiet hand steering the needle. Leroy hovered, eyes on the page, confusion knitting his brow. Mom's letter? Voice small like a kid caught fibbing. I folded it carefully, tucking it away, the weight shifting, not heavier but truer. Forgive? The question bloomed inside, tender shoot through cracked soil. Could I, when the hurt still bloomed fresh? Or was this the pivot, turning pain to pattern? Yeah, I said, meeting his gaze level. The courtroom emptying around us like a stage cleared for the next act. Turns out she saw you clearer than you saw yourself. He reached again, tentative, but I stepped back. Ethel's presence a silent buffer. The doors swung open to more rain, a question hanging wet in the air. What melody plays when the solo ends? Sunlight slanted through the garage windows, dust motes dancing lazily in the beams like confetti from a quiet party. The air thick with the clean bite of fresh-cut thread and the faint oiled hum of the singer machine warming up. 2 weeks post-court, and this space, once my late-night hideout, now breathed wider, shelves cleared of Leroy's trumpet cases, walls papered in swatches of kente and linen, each bolt a promise stitched in color. I'd hung the first Harlem Grace dress on the dress form that morning, its wrap bodice hugging the curves without a pinch, the high neck framing an imaginary collarbone like a spotlight on quiet power. Touching the hem, fingers trailing the even stitches, I felt the pull, not tug of war anymore, but a gentle draw forward, like fabric easing under the presser foot. Ethel poked her head in around noon, tote slung over her shoulder, eyes lighting on the mannequin. Lord Hadiza, that one's a sermon in silk. Fits like it knows your secrets. She stepped closer, tracing the African print with a fingertip, her laugh low and approving. You turning this corner into a chapel. Chapel. The word warmed, chasing the last chill from the ruling, house mine, accounts sorted. But the empty hooks on the wall still echoed his absence, a hollow note in the morning quiet. More like a workroom, I said, threading the machine with deep indigo, the spool spinning smoothly under my palm. Signed with the shop on 125th yesterday, 50 pieces by fall. They'll carry the line, teach classes too. Her whistle cut softly, proudly. From scraps to shelves. Who's the preacher now? The door creaked wider then, Lila bursting in with Jamal trailing, her sneakers squeaking on the concrete, pigtails flying wild as she beelined for the dress form. Gamma! It's like a princess tent! She twirled, arms wide, bumping the bolts and sending a cascade of pins skittering like metallic rain. Jamal scooped them up quickly, his laugh easy but eyes scanning the space, taking in the new work table I'd bolted down, the corkboard pinned with orders from the Prayer Circle sisters. Mom, this. It's real. Got the email from the boutique. Prototype photos, they wanted 10 more yesterday. His grin split wide, that engineer spark in him mirroring mine now, not strained by secrets. I pulled him into a side hug, his shirt crisp from my old ironing board, now repurposed for patterns. Real as these seams. You still on for that website tweak? Folks online are already buzzing from the church show last week. He nodded, pulling out his laptop, settling on the stool with a thud, fingers flying keys while Lila helped, her chubby hands draping a scrap over my shoulder like a cape. Fly, Gamma! The joy bubbled pure, chasing shadows. What if she'd asked for Daddy that morning? His side of the bed still indented from habit. But she hadn't, not today, her world shrinking to glitter and glue. The phone buzzed on the shelf, unknown, but the code whispered Bronx. I let it ring twice, thumb hovering, then answered. Hadiza. Tanisha's voice, hesitant now, stripped of yesterday's edge. It's me. Saw the article in the community rag. Local seamstress stitches hope. Thought. Congrats? And, if you're still short-handed for classes, I could help. Know my way around a bobbin. Tanisha. The name tugged, not sharp anymore, but curious, like a loose thread begging a pull. Help? After the coffee confessions, her receipts lay bare. I glanced at Lila, her tongue poking out as she sewed air with an invisible needle, and the image overlapped. Those classroom afternoons, Tanisha's patient knots and braids mirroring this now. Classes start next month, I said, voice testing the water. If you're steady. Pause on her end, breath soft. Steady as I can be. Owe you that much. Clicked off, the quiet settling warmer, not forgiveness full-blown, but a patch maybe. Rough edges tucked in for now. Afternoon waned into gold hour, machine whirring steadily as I pieced a bodice, needle-piercing cotton with rhythmic pokes, the thread pulling taut without snag. Jamal's screen glowed beside me, sight mock-up blooming, Harlem Grace, dresses for the women who hold it down. Pride swelled quietly, but doubt nipped heels. What if the orders dried? What if the sisters whispered still, seeing me not broken but building? Ethel swung by again, this time with takeout bags steaming Chinese, Loman tangled like my thoughts, fortune cookies tucked in like afterthoughts. Eat up. Can't I'm on hunger. We unpacked on the workbench, chopsticks clacking, her stories of deacon board drama pulling laughs from me, light and unexpected. Then the garage door rumbled up slowly, late light spilling long across the floor, silhouetting a figure in the frame, Leroy toolbox in hand, grease-streaked jeans and a faded tea trumpet nowhere in sight. My needle paused midair, thread dangling like a question. Heard the machine humming from the street, he said, voice rough as unsanded pine, setting the box down with a clank. Thought. Pedal's been sticking, figured I'd tune it. Tune it. The offer hung simple, but loaded. His hands on my tools after everything. Ethel's eyebrow quirked silently, but she gathered plates, slipping out with a call if you need backup. Alone now, the air thickened, his shadow stretching toward the singer, boots scuffing faintly on concrete. He knelt by the machine, wrench turning slowly, oil can hissing a fine mist that caught the sun in oily rainbows. Place looks alive, he murmured, not looking up, fingers deft on the bolts, the same hands that had once plucked trumpet valves, now coaxing my lifeline smooth. Alive. The word echoed Mama's letter, her script blurring in memory. You're the thread. Hurt flickered, not blaze but ember. Did he see it now, the life I'd spun from scraps while he chased notes? It is, I said, resuming stitches, needle flashing. Classes for the sisters, teaching them to cut their own patterns. He nodded, wrench clicking final, the pedal easing silently under test. Good. You always had that eye for what fits. Pause, wrench set aside, his hands folding slowly in his lap, grease smudged like old regrets. The quiet stretched, machine silent now. Only the distant thump of bass from a passing lowrider. Hadiza. I joined that group at the center, men's circle, talking the mess out. Mess, his word for the unraveling, but owning it. A step, maybe, twisted, but turning. I met his eyes then, the fire banked low, not gone. Takes guts, I said, thread snapping clean. Forgive? The question bloomed again, pedal soft. Could I thread him back in, or was this the new seam, separate but strong? He rose slowly, toolbox swinging light. If you need pedals tuned. Or ears. Nodded, door rumbling down behind him. Shadow fading to dusk. Alone with the dress half formed, pins glinting like stars, I wondered. What pattern emerges when the old one frays clean? Sunset painted the Lenox storefront gold, the sign Hadiza's atelier, catching rays like a promise kept, windows fogged from irons and laughter over cutting tables. 1 year since court, and this space thrummed alive, racks of Harlem Grace swaying in the breeze, serving 100 women weekly with prints whispering marches and mothers. I tallied the day's haul, 40 sales classes booked, till heavy with bills smelling of city hope. Fingers on the crisp edges, the weight shifted to ballast, steadying the sway. Jamal poked through the curtain, laptop under arm, grin wide, juggling bolts. Mom, sights crashing. Brooklyn features blowing it up. Orders from Jersey. His thrill mirrored mine, unshadowed now, his code weaving on line as my threads bound cloth. He hugged quickly, cologne clean. Proud doesn't cover it. The word warmed. What if he'd carried the weight alone, but we'd mended side by side? Lila scampered in, pigtails flying, clutching her wobbly sampler. Gamma flower for the big dress. I knelt, her grape chapstick mixing with cotton dust. Masterpiece, baby. Window display. Her squeal lit the room, arms tight, heartbeat pure, untainted. What worlds dodged. Gratitude chased shadows. Afternoon waned into gold hour, machine whirring steadily as I pieced a bodice, needle-piercing cotton with rhythmic pokes, the thread pulling taut without snag. Ethel swung by with takeout bags steaming Chinese. Loman tangled like my thoughts, fortune cookies tucked in like afterthoughts. Eat up, can't I'm on hunger. We unpacked on the workbench, chopsticks clacking. Her stories of deacon board drama pulling laughs from me, light and unexpected. The garage door rumbled up slowly, late light spilling long across the floor, silhouetting Leroy, toolbox in hand, in grease-streaked jeans and a faded tee. My needle paused midair, thread dangling like a question. "Heard the machine humming from the street," he said, voice rough as unsanded pine, setting the box down with a clank. Thought. Pedal's been sticking. Figured I'd tune it. He knelt by the machine, wrench turning slowly, oil can hissing a fine mist that caught the sun in oily rainbows. "Place looks alive," he murmured, not looking up, fingers deft on the bolts, the same hands that had once plucked trumpet valves, now coaxing my lifeline smooth. Alive. The word echoed Mama's letter, her script blurring in memory. "You're the thread." Hurt flickered, not blaze but ember. Did he see it now, the life I'd spun from scraps while he chased notes? "It is," I said, resuming stitches, needle flashing. "Classes for the sisters, teaching 'em to cut their own patterns." He nodded, wrench clicking final, the pedal easing silently under test. "Good. You always had that eye for what fits." Pause, wrench set aside, his hands folding slowly in his lap, grease smudged like old regrets. The quiet stretched, machine silent now, only the distant thump of bass from a passing lowrider. "Hadiza." I joined that group at the center, men's circle, talking the mess out. Mess? His word for the unraveling, but owning it? A step maybe, twisted but turning. I met his eyes then, the fire banked low, not gone. "Takes guts," I said, thread snapping clean. He rose slow, toolbox swinging light. "If you need pedals tuned, or ears." Nodded, door rumbling down behind him, shadow fading to dusk. Alone with the dress half-formed, pins glinting like stars, I wondered. What pattern emerges when the old one frays clean? As the threads of my life unraveled that night in the church hall, I learned the hardest stitch of all. True strength isn't in holding everything together. It's in knowing when to let go and reweave something fiercer for the women who come after. I'm Hadiza Johnson, 52 years old, and I've learned that love doesn't chain you. It teaches you to cut your own cloth, bold and unapologetic, so you can drape yourself in the grace you deserve. And in that quiet garage, under the hum of the singer, I found my freedom, not in revenge, but in creation, turning pain into patterns that fit just right. What about you, sister? What's the one seam you've mended in your own story that made you feel truly seen? Drop it in the comments below. Your words might just be the thread someone else needs. If this tale tugged at your heartstrings, hit that like button and subscribe to Auntie May's Tales for more stories of grit and grace from women like us. Thank you from the bottom of my soul for walking this road with me. Until next time, keep stitching your story. Bold, beautiful, and all yours. God bless.